So this video was supposed to be about me, aka Mod Mamono, correcting this video. Mega Man Fighters build the roster by 201X's Arcade. What my video would have been about is irrelevant, but the short of it is I wanted to make a lot of corrections and vent about the dumb character limit he imposed on himself when he gave himself more luxury with other build the roster videos based on Capcom properties, but doesn't give Mega Man the luxury because of things that happened to Mega Man 12 years ago from his video's release and the pessimism that still persists. That was a big grievance with his video. Amongst other things. I got far from making notes for my script, but I just got fed up with the constant.
Who doesn't love Mega Man? Oh, right, them. In fact, Mega Man has been a very odd sore spot for Capcom ever since Keiji Inafune left the company. Mega Man 10 came out in 2010, sold relatively well, and then Capcom suddenly decided to cancel 4 different Mega Man projects all at the exact same time and left him to rot in their vault for the next 8 years until Keiji Inafune suddenly reemerged and made bank on Kickstarter with his project I Can't Believe It's Not Mega Man, which inspired Capcom to release another actual Mega Man game, probably out of spite. And so we got Mega Man 11, a great return to the franchise that was applauded by fans and critics alike. So, of course, Capcom shoved Mega Man back into their vault right after that. I'm just kidding, it was the second highest selling Mega Man game of all time, and I don't mean classic Mega Man, I mean all Mega Man. Yeah, Mega Man 11 sold, and there's currently no plans for a new Mega Man game, and in those 4 years, the only old Capcom franchise they tried to resurrect was the only one that nobody was asking for. Wow, great, a brand new Ghosts and Goblins. That's so much better than any of these. Thanks, Capcom. Way to have your finger on the pulse of your audience. A gotcha game, because that's as close as we're going to get. Okay, it's time to finally face the facts that no matter how much fans are asking for it or how well it sells, Capcom isn't interested in making a new Mega Man game. These are moments that die-hard Mega Man fans would kill for. Heck, I still remember how much people freaked out when Mega Man's Big Super for Smash Bros. Was revealed. It was for 2 seconds and it wasn't even in a Mega Man game, and yet this one shot had people losing their minds. How the heck did Capcom not take that as a sign? Buster Spot. And they'll both be coming from the Mega Man Star Force game, or as I like to call them, Mega Man, holy crap, how are these games this expensive? Let's hope that upcoming Battle Network collection sells well, so that way in 5 years Capcom will give us a Star Force collection. Well, on the opposite end of that spectrum, you need a Rushdown character, and if Quick Man isn't the Rushdown character of this game, I don't know who is. Why did I think this was a good idea? Alright, 35th anniversary, big deal. Someone should be doing something special about that.
And I got kinda sick of it. Not just him saying that constantly and not applying the same standard for another hypothetical roster he built like Darkstalkers, who he made a far more favorable video about, even if by all accounts by his logic Capcom loves Darkstalkers even less. But this video isn't about that. I got my buddy, we'll call him Fred, to co-write this script with me, which just turned into him making all the script for the crucial bits. Because nearing the end of making my notes on 201X's Arcades, instead of correcting him, I felt like our efforts were better spent challenging the negative zeitgeist a lot of fans have been feeling since the cancellations in the 2010s you occasionally still see ripples of to this very day. It's a complicated issue. And for that reason, Fred and I would like to make a disclaimer. We aren't trying to say you're wrong. We're trying to ease the air, because a lot of people genuinely lost hope in the series' future in a way that isn't reflective of what's actually happening. There are no good guys or bad guys in this story. Be it Capcom, Inafune, fans, us 2 writers, etc. If you're looking to redirect blame or for confirmation bias who to blame, this is the wrong video. Our goal is to nullify any blame that goes around. The rest of this script and video is now Fred's, as he's way more knowledgeable than I am on it. The actual video will start in a second. Let's first get people up to speed that may not know what we're talking about before we address our actual points.
In 2010, it was announced that Keiji Inafune would be leaving Capcom after being with them for 23 years. On top of being sudden and carrying many implications for the company, it also made many wonder what this would mean for Mega Man, the franchise Inafune was most known for. What did end up happening was all known Mega Man projects at the time being cancelled, a Joe character appearance in a fighting game, and a long gap between new releases. All of this gave off a very damning image of Capcom giving up on the IP to spite Inafune, and for quite a long time, that viewpoint remained uncontested. The biggest cause and contribution to this pessimistic mindset were the mentioned cancellations of all known Mega Man projects at the time, along with the drought of no new games. apart from the first two legacy collections, for some time, all of which started at the time when Inafune left Capcom. All this led to the idea that Capcom actively hated the Mega Man franchise and got rid of all projects related to it to spite Inafune. This idea was so widespread it even was a gigantic contributor to Mighty No. 9 seeing as much support as it did initially. Many even admitted that they supported it more to spite Capcom than anything else, not just for the Mega Man stuff, but also other controversial decisions at the time. There is no sugarcoating it. This wasn't a fun time to be a Mega Man fan and nobody was not justified in being upset. This has gone down as a dark age in the series for a reason. At the same time, not only are things very different now, but we have since gained a lot of perspective and context as to what happened with each of those projects and what got them ultimately cancelled, which helps us understand it a whole lot more. In total there were 5 games cancelled, 3 formally announced and 2 canned before even being revealed, so let's go over them one by one. The last of these we ever learned about was Mega Man Star Force 4, a 4th entry in the Star Force series, which was set to have a darker tone, a focus on hacking, and teaming Geo up with a direct descendant of Lan Hikari from the Battle Network series. The game was quietly cancelled before even being announced, and aside from this concept art and a basic plot synopsis, we don't know much else about it. Ultimately, the game was cancelled due to the underwhelming sales of SF3 and especially Mega Man Battle Network Operate Shooting Star. You can argue about whether a super low-budget port of one of the lesser-regarded BN games was a good game, and whose sales were made to dictate the future of the RPG branch of the franchise on was a good idea or not, but I chalk SF4's fate up to the diminishing returns Mega Man faced at the time, due to oversaturation. More on that later. Another game that was quietly cancelled behind the scenes before even getting announced was Maverick Hunter. This reboot of the Mega Man X series would feature a drastically redesigned X in a first-person shooter adventure, where he'd be partnered with a police officer ally, while Zero would also be a playable character, forced to destroy X, presumably following his original programming by Wily. Most we ever really got of it were some proof-of-concept clips and that ex-Metroid Prime developers would have worked on it. Many specifics are a mystery to us if they were ever conceptualized to begin with. The game was ultimately cancelled since internal reception to it was incredibly mixed and big departures made from the original X games, from X's design, to the genre, to the general feel of it, made it a very expensive gamble to go for. Given the very mixed fan reactions, with several citing their skepticism of the game, it's easy to see where they were coming from and the one cancellation that isn't as mourned for. Rockman Online was a Korean MMORPG, which was a joint project between Capcom and Neowiz Games. While X focused above all, it was intriguingly also set to crossover with the classic series and even got some genuinely really exciting anime trailers to promote it. The crossover premise alone got the game a lot of interest. While many were aware the region-specific nature of it would likely prevent them from playing it, it was met with a lot of curiosity and was mourned when it was gone. Even more so since the game took some surprising amount of lesser-used materials from both sub-series, such as Duo, the Mega Man Killers, and the Command Mission cast. More than likely, the game was cancelled due to Neowiz undergoing a restructuring in 2012, which affected their projects in the works at the time, Rockman Online being no exception. Mega Man Universe was a platformer with a heavy focus on stage creation, with mostly Mega Man 2 elements and loads of playable characters. Upon its reveal, the game was met with interest, with one main point of critique being the new art style, which was divisive at best, with Inafune specifically wanting it to have a westernized appeal, which ultimately didn't catch on.
It was even called Mega Man Universe in Japan, not Rockman Universe. Rockman is the Japanese name for Mega Man.
Aside from this one aspect, fans were fairly receptive of the game, though not without some division, and it was up there with Legends 3 and Rockman Online is an often lamented loss. Critics meanwhile were more critical of it in preview events, particularly regarding the controls, which in hindsight was a sign of what was going on behind the scenes. Years after the fact, We got a detailed account of how turbulent the game's development was, and while I recommend checking out the full thing, as linked in the description, I will highlight some major points. The game suffered from a very unclear vision, with the scope of it changing quite severely and eventually ballooning beyond what the team tasked with it was capable of providing. Inafune was insistent on questionable ideas that were ultimately detrimental to the project, such as the very unpopular art style and, for some reason, more realistic movement, which in hindsight give a good context to what previewers disliked about the controls and compromise the game's already struggling performance. Once Inafune left the company, the entire project floundered without anyone to lead it. Capcom did try to salvage things, but ultimately, it was decided that the project wasn't worth further pursuing, which, given its already troubled history, is not unreasonable. It's anything but controversial to say that out of the cancelled 5, Legends 3 is the big one. The one still heavily talked about these days and the one commanding discussions about this era of the franchise. The long-awaited return of a beloved cult classic sub-series, promising to tie up the cliffhangers Legends 2 left behind and showing what the series could be now that it would be on Nintendo's then shiny new handheld. We got new protags, new ideas, the full package to make for an exciting return into the world of Mega Man Volnut. Indeed, even before things went south, Legends 3 was the one to get the most general media attention, and it braved an interesting approach for fans to play a part in the game's development, via the MML3 dev room. All things considered, it seemingly had the potential to really capture the gaming landscape outside of just the hardcore MM fanbase in a way the franchise rarely managed during that era. Apart from Mega Man 9 and the height of Battle Network's success, needless to say, when Inafune left Capcom things went quiet and the promised demo never came to be, and then eventually, the game was canned. The reactions were as one would expect. People were shocked and upset, petitions were launched to get the game back into development, and countless people talked about it. Even more than the other cancelled projects, this one genuinely shook people, and the fallout of it can still be felt to this day. This begs the question of what exactly happened, and it is quite a wild ride. Perhaps most wild is the fact the game was never officially greenlit to begin with. It was announced, but Keiji Inafune didn't seem to have put the game through the usual approval process and instead seemed to want to brute force it. While there are no clear accounts of how resistant Capcom was to the idea of a Legends 3 if at all, it is important to realize the sub-series wasn't the greatest seller. It had a cult following, and Legends 3's notoriety has only made that one grow over time, but as it stands, it was a risky investment to make. This was, unbeknownst to everyone, why the dev room existed. It was made to be a focus test on how much interest there was in the project, with the active number of participants dictating the fate of it. Unfortunately, on top of the game being effectively announced under false pretenses, fans were not made aware of this. A very massive mistake that showed its effect when participation waned over time, as means to have input, such as polls, became less frequent, or there were more quiet times without as much going on, something that was bound to happen no matter the community's enthusiasm. It doesn't help that this kind of approach was uncharted waters for game development, with no clear vision on how to handle this while being able to manage things in a timely manner while keeping things at a certain budget. Sad as it is, this idea, while neat, was clearly not fully thought through. It was very much like what we know now via backer rewards for indie games, except on a much more unrealistic scale. On top of all these complications, you got Inafune leaving Capcom before Legends 3 could even be properly given the okay, and you got a recipe for disaster. There was one more attempt to gauge interest via the Mega Man Legends 3 prototype, which was meant to launch on the 3DS eShop as a paid product, with 300,000 total sales being the requirement to keep the project alive. Then, likely due to the 3DS not doing well initially, the prototype was delayed indefinitely, and that was the end of it. Granted, 300,000 downloads for a paid demo was not a reasonable number, and that was during a time Capcom set its sales expectations higher than what was healthy. But the whole situation should tell you just what kind of state Legends 3 was in. It was a fundamentally mismanaged project that struggled to stay up, and with the person leading it leaving the company, was sadly left without a future. not a cancelled title, but the reaction to this was way too colored by what was going on at the time to not include it here. Perhaps one of the most infamous moments of the Mega Man Dark Age was bad box art Mega Man's inclusion in Street Fighter Cross Tekken, and it's not hard to see why, with all the Mega Man cancellations at the time, having a middle-aged, fat, Joe character version of the character shows up in a fighting game, was absolutely not a good look. The fact he takes cues from Mega Man Volnut from Mega Man Legends, even being called a digger, like Volnut, in his official profile, only makes things seem even more damning. All things considered, I think the initial, highly negative response was justified, but nowadays we have more context that I feel is important to understand how this came to be. Mega Man was always intended to be a guest character in the game. However, it was Keiji Inafune himself who dismissed the idea as not very interesting since we have seen Mega Man in fighting games before. This led to some brainstorming on what could be done, and they settled on Bad Box Art Mega Man, with many different takes on the idea being conceptualized. While we did end up with a 25 years later, very exaggerated and goofy take of this man on this art, this was done in an effort to be creative and to be to Inafune's liking, not out of spite or to make fun of the franchise. It is important to note that this isn't even that strange. Bad box art Mega Man has been a recurring in-joke both before and after. To give a few examples, Mega Man 9 and 10 both have bad box art cover art in homage to it. Bad box art Mega Man was meant to be a playable character in Mega Man universe. He made several appearances in the Archie comics. One of X's alternate colors in MVSCI is based on him. He gets a loving cameo in the Resident Evil 3 remake. And that isn't even all of it. Bad box art Mega Man is an in-joke Capcom has a lot of affection for, and his SF Cross T counterpart is ultimately a victim of bad timing. By the time he was pitched and the game was still being worked on, Mega Man wasn't in a bad place, and they wanted to honor this out there part of its history, in part to celebrate the franchise. A fun little joke, that sadly, was put into a very different context, due to the events surrounding it. So yeah, 5 cancelled games, 4 we knew of at the time, SF4 being the sole exception we learned of later, the effective caretaker of the IP leaving the company, and a very badly timed joke appearance in a fighting game later, and you had yourself a recipe for disaster. It genuinely was like the stars aligned to make things look as horrible as possible. The image of a company kicking down on a creator that went his own path, while laying waste to his legacy, was one countless people had, and with how little we truly knew at the time, it's understandable things looked dire, terrible, and petty. Thing is though, nowadays we do have the information to understand what was happening, and that perspective does matter. At the time it seemed like every Mega Man project was buried despite Inafune, but as time passed and enough lips loosened, we can now say that, as horrendous as the timing was, each project was put to rest for totally different reasons. Only 2 of them truly involved Inafune's departure, but even so, that was also severely owed to the game either having a deeply troubled development or not even being given the go-ahead proper. When Inafune left Capcom, it caused a certain gap to form. He was not only a big name in the company, but also the one running the franchise ever since Mega Man 3, with nobody chosen to take his role at the time. As Kazuhiro Tsukiya, one of Mega Man 11's producers and current caretakers of the franchise, has spoken up about this in an interview. During the drought era, following Inafune leaving, there was a strong desire to continue the franchise, but the atmosphere wasn't quite right for someone to step up and be willing to take responsibility for the series at the time, and it remained that way for some time. Emboldened by social media feedback and the good sales of the legacy collections, Tsukiya and fellow producer Koji Oda took up the mantle to make Mega Man 11 happen, and the rest is history. Mega Man 11 came out in 2018, marking the end of the drought era, and since then, quite a lot happened. The 0ZX and Battle Network Legacy collections have been released, and other titles such as the Power Battle Fighters Duology and Wily Wars have seen re-releases. Mega Man X Dive has been released, serving as a near-constant source of content and even representing all 7 sub-series. The series continues to cross over with other series, be it Capcom, other companies, or a return to Super Smash Bros. Mega Man Fully Charged got a comic mini-series revival, taking things in a darker direction, with more game elements thrown in. The series has as much a presence in company crossover art as ever. The Battle Network anime has seen a limited time release on YouTube to celebrate the launch of the Legacy Collection. The series continues to see a lot of merchandise of all kinds and even manga. The 201X's soundbox even comes with this lovely new art for what is easily the least active sub-series of the franchise. And that is on top of the fact we know something is being worked on. In early 2019 we already got word something was gonna be entering the planning stages soon, and in 2020, we saw a big Capcom data breach that included the title Rockman Tyson. Now, we have yet to see what this game is like, and it missed its initially planned 2022 release window, but it's important to consider what was happening in the world in 2020 and 2021. Things were thrown off schedule all across the board, including Battle Network's planned anniversary celebration, as this quote can also clues us in. No doubt this was also going to include a far earlier announcement of the Legacy Collection, which we only just got this year. Worth noting is also that Kazuhiro Tsuchiya is currently busy with Street Fighter, given 6 was in development earlier no doubt, and the circumstances of the past years, it's no surprise he'd be busy keeping things moving there in a timely manner before Rockman Tyson can be continued on. I understand wishing things went by faster, especially since we had such a long period of no new titles, but giving the series time to breathe has its advantages and was honestly needed. In the 2000s there was so much Mega Man to go around that keeping up with all of it wasn't realistic for most people, and I do believe burnout during that time was the biggest contributor to eventual diminishing returns, which is what I think ultimately did Star Force 4 in particular. Compare that to now, where every new release does well. X Dive has been around for years now with no sign of stopping, and the BN Legacy Collection even went on to become the fastest selling title in the franchise's history. Slow as it may be, these types of results are how you secure a future for an IP. It's worth noting that, as unpleasant and uncertain as the 2010s were for the franchise, even at that point we saw a very constant string of stuff happening. From crossovers, and lots of them, the first couple Legacy Collections, a fan game being given official support, prominence in promo materials for anything featuring the IP, once again a lot of merch, exposure in other Capcom titles. The Archie comics and even a TV show, Mega Man still kept busy all this time, and you don't see that with an IP a company has distaste or no faith for. That is an important aspect. A company has no obligation to work with IPs they own. If there was serious bad blood with Inafune or no faith the IP was worth the work, they could just put Mega Man into a vault, never to be seen again. That isn't what is happening though, and while I get that some are only interested in new main games, it's still important to recognize that few franchises have the privilege of exposure this constant that Mega Man gets. In conclusion, we want to stress that we aren't trying to tell anyone how to feel or to even correct anyone. All we want to do is offer a different perspective, because we genuinely don't think Mega Man is in a bad place. A tipping point for me wanting to do this was seeing this 35th anniversary key art and seeing a few reactions scoffing at Volnut's presence, due to his series being inactive and Legends 3 being cancelled. Not the first time I have seen that kind of thing either, and it perplexes me a bit. I am sad about Legends 3 to this very day myself, but I have to ask, As a fan, isn't it cause to be happy that even with Legends being inactive, Volnut has had such a rich history that allowed us to see him time and time again? I can't think of any scenario where leaving him out of stuff would be preferable. If anything, that's where I'd feel a sense of spite towards Legends, not by them proudly showing its cast off. To hit even closer to home, Arrow, a character planned for Legends 3, still managed to appear in Odoranger, a rhythm mobile game, along with many other Mega Man characters and this official calendar art. Am I upset and look at it as salt in the wound? No. I'm happy that this character I was looking forward to seeing has still managed to get something and be legitimized as a member of the greater Mega Man cast instead of disappearing into a void. If anything, I hope we see her again in the future, in any capacity. The point of all of this was to present a more optimistic viewpoint and present a better understanding of what happened back then. Capcom aren't perfect and they aren't our friend, but they aren't our enemy either. Similarly, despite some critical feelings, we don't shift blame on Inafune either. Things just went down in an unfortunate way, but we are long away from that now. Things may be a bit slow at times, but give it some faith and you'll see that no doubt, we have far seen the last of Mega Man. This is where the video was meant to end, however, something has come up now that should be addressed. On May 30th, we found out that Kazuhiro Tsukiya has left Capcom, and as of writing, we have yet to hear of someone succeeding him in his role as lead producer of the Mega Man series. Given what happened last time the caretaker of the series left the company, this is understandably not painting the most optimistic picture on a surface level. That said, things are quite a bit different this time. When Inafune departed the company, Mega Man was in a much worse place, between oversaturation of the series, with way too many releases in quick succession, diminishing returns with numerous drops in sales, floundering and mismanaged projects, and even some games so badly received that they managed to do genuine damage to their respective series. By contrast, Tsukiya during his run has led the series to constant success stories, with MM11, the collections and X-Dive all doing well, and the BN collection becoming the fastest-selling title in franchise history. Capcom are a business above all else at the end of the day, and all this together gives substantial motivation to keep the ball rolling. For all we know, this may just be a changing of the guard, with a new producer being announced, and we even have some good candidates for it. A good one being Masakazu Iguchi, who has been with the Legends series, Battle Network, Star Force and Mega Man 11. He even got a BN character in his image, known here as Mr. Famous, and was meant to be the director of the ill-fated Legends 3, so we are talking about a very notable figure for the franchise here. Time will tell. I would have liked to have some more unambiguously uplifting news to report for this, but this isn't a sign things are over again. For now, the best we can do is be patient, but at least we are given reason to hope Mega Man isn't going anywhere, with how hot of an iron Tsukiya has left behind, for Capcom to strike and keep expanding. For now, let's see what the future has in store. This is where the video would have ended once more, but even more happened since then. On June 6th it was announced that Rockman X-Dive would be ceasing operation and shut down later in the year, though it was also stated that international servers would remain online. Initially, this seemed like yet another case of badly timed news, despite there being no sign of Tsukiya's leaving having anything to do with it. Admittingly, I held off on addressing this in the script because I wasn't even sure how to. Then, less than a week following this news, something happened. In the most recent Capcom showcase, an offline version of Mega Man X-Dive was revealed, bringing the game back in a new, more permanent format and even confirming that the Steam version will make it to Europe this time. This is bigger news than I feel many give it credit for. I understand a lot of fans don't care for X-Dive, but this should be taken as a net positive. Mobile games, more than any other type of game, are treated as disposable by the industry. They run their course and then go offline forever, never to be playable again. Capcom is doing a big service to preservation by doing this and then giving this successful Mega Man 1 another leash at life by bringing it back this way. Shows they took note it did well and are giving it some pretty special treatment. It is perfectly legit to not care about this, but it's a kind of move many fans of other popular, defunct mobile games like Sonic Runners or Dragalia Lost ask for all the time, only to be denied, while Mega Man ends up getting it. I just don't see this in any kind of cynical light. We also got the announcement of Apollo Justice, Ace Attorney Trilogy, set to release in 2014. What makes this relevant to what we are talking about here? Well, the game was leaked to have been planned for a release near Ace Attorney 7, which was leaked to have been planned for a 2021 release, something that obviously hasn't happened yet. The fact of the matter is that as much as people are losing hope for Rockman Tyson, Capcom's release schedule is still dealing with the effects of the pandemic and we are only now seeing their plans slowly be realized. I'll admit, I was myself starting to feel down on things, but as it stands, I think what's happening now is very reassuring. X-Dive truly isn't going anywhere and we are seeing clear signs that things are slowly getting back on schedule, and once that happens, I have no doubts Mega Man will be right back too.